You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. Now, the Africa Development Bank Group projected that the African continent will recover from the blow of COVID-19 pandemic. Real GDP in Africa was projected to grow at 3.4% in 2021 after contracting by 2.1% in the previous year, that was 2020. The continent recorded a surge in government financing, debts and debt financing, and of course, the issue of vaccine inequality was a major issue all through 2021. Now, let's get the perspective of the Director of Macroeconomics and Governance Division at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Mr. Bartholomew Armah, joining us from New York. Good afternoon, Mr. Armah. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Hope everything is great on your side.
Great on my side. So the AFDB estimated that African governments needed additional gross financing of about $154 billion between 2020 and 2021 to respond to the crisis. How well would you say the continent responded economically to the crisis in 2021?
Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, the continent did a pretty good job in terms of responding to the pandemic on both the health dimension in terms of the resources spent on procuring PPE and also providing social support to people that were affected, the vulnerable and the poor. The estimates run about 100 million people have been thrown into poverty as a result of the pandemic. But you should also realize that the African economies didn't have the same amount of resources to respond. So the response was actually commensurate with the resource availability. So if you compare, for example, with the developed countries that have unlimited access to reserves and all the money that has been pumped into the system, the monies that have been printed that are actually contributing to inflation, you find that they had a bigger fiscal response. Now, the question then is on the vaccine side. Access to vaccine is going to be critical for any kind of durable recovery. Fortunately for Africa, the impact on the population in terms of the health impact has not been as bad as we thought it would be, given the state of the health services. So, but going forward, vaccine equity is going to be critical. And this means not only getting access to and meeting the COVAX threshold of 20%, which is really the minimum. Currently, only about 3% of the population has been vaccinated in Africa, compared to about 45% in Europe and other countries, or other regions. So it is important that we increase access to vaccines. Now, part of this problem, or solving this problem, would mean local production of vaccines. Now, while there's been some progress is happening in Africa. About 6 countries, Egypt, Morocco, Senegal, Nigeria, South Africa, Algeria, there's been some beginning of local production in those countries. But the problem is that there's currently really the issue of licensing. And secondly, what is happening is what is called fill and finish. That is, they import the products and they package it in these countries. So it's really simply similar to what you call the assembly mechanism in the importation of cars. What needs to happen going forward is actually the production of these vaccines in those countries, because that is what's going to avert some of these supply chain issues and also increase the availability of these vaccines. Hand in hand with that, of course, is the need to address issues of vaccine hesitancy. But those are issues that need to be addressed and will be fundamental to addressing the vaccine inequality in Africa.
So obviously the issue of inequality, vaccine inequality, hesitancy, local manufacturing, these factors would determine how 2022 looks like. So from your perspective now, what does 2022 look like when we take all these factors into consideration?
Well, 2022 will also depend on the kind of recovery that happens in the developed world, because don't forget that we export a lot of our products to those countries, to China, to the United States, to Europe. And so the extent to which those countries also
All right, seems like we lost Mr. Amma there. Apologies for that. Mr. Bartholomew Amma is Director of Macroeconomics and Governance Division with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. And he was telling us there about his expectations for the year 2020 for the continent of Africa. Well, looking at other parts of the continent now, Kenya's real GDP grew 9.9% in the third quarter of 2021. The growth is attributed to the easing of COVID-19 containment measures. The Q3 growth comes after an earlier impressive second quarter performance of 10.1% of real GDP growth of 2021. Then in Egypt, Egypt's Suez Canal revenues hit all-time high, recording $6.3 billion in 2021. The Suez Canal Authority, the government body that runs the waterway, said that the canal's revenues rose by 12.8%. And that's a $720 million increase from 2020, when the international waterway brought in $5.6 billion in revenues. SCA Chairman Osama Rabi said that the canal saw 20,694 ships crossing from both directions, compared to 18,830 ships in 2020. That's a 10% increase. The Suez Canal recorded a total net tonnage of 1.27 billion tons during 2021. That's an increase of 8.5% from 1.17 billion tons in the previous year. In March, remember, 2021, navigation in the Suez Canal was interrupted when the giant shipping vessel Ever Given ran aground and blocked the waterway for nearly 6 days. The incident disrupted the global shipping movement and halted the passage of hundreds of ships from the canal, incurring losses estimated between $12 to $15 million each day during the canal closure. Well, that's the program for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Let's do it again tomorrow. I'm Ini John Mekwa.